It's official, Justin Trudeau is coming for your guns. This was made known in the speech from the throne, the speech delivered by the Governor General, Her Excellency Julie Payette, on behalf of Justin Trudeau's newly re-elected government. As she laid out what the mandates and priorities will be for this government, it was made clear they're going after what they determine are so-called assault rifles, and also making it so municipalities can restrict otherwise lawful ownership of handguns. Here's the section from the speech in question.
The government will crack down on gun crime, banning military-style assault rifles and taking steps to introduce a buyback program. Municipalities and communities that want to ban handguns will be able to do so. And the government will invest to help cities fight gang-related violence.
It didn't take up a huge part of the speech, but still, it reinforces and reiterates a promise made in the campaign. The government is still planning to plow ahead, even tying this to the anniversary, the 30th anniversary, of the horrific tragedy and massacre at L'École Polytechnique in Montreal. The problem with this policy, no matter how many times the government lays it out, and no matter how many times the Liberals talk about the need to further gun control in Canada, is that they are still just plain wrong when they identify legally owned guns as being at all connected to the problem. Military-style assault rifles aren't a thing in Canada. The AR-15, which they're actually referring to, the one that typically is the subject of their ire, is not an assault rifle. In fact, it's merely an aesthetic change between that restricted gun and several non-restricted guns that you can have in Canada. Literally, guns that can do the exact same thing that are non-restricted because they look less scary than the big black AR-15. The problem with this, however, is that the government's rhetoric is winning people over. People that don't know about guns, people that haven't been shooters themselves, people that don't have their possession and acquisition licenses will go along with this and think just because Justin Trudeau said so, there is this assault weapons problem, this epidemic in Canada of people being gunned down by legally owned firearms. We know for a fact that the vast majority of gun crime is gang-related, taking place in urban centers. We also know the government is still not tracking the origins of guns used in crime to determine where they're coming from. Many studies that have been done have been a patchwork of responses, but more importantly, they're telling us that these are guns that are smuggled across the border, not lawfully owned guns that end up getting used in crime. So this is something that needs to be pushed back against. The government that has vowed itself to be lining its policies with evidence is ignoring the evidence because it's convenient when it comes to firearms. But the problem is the policies that are being proposed are vague at best. Take, for example, this section of the throne speech saying municipalities will be able to ban handguns if they want. Now, some municipalities, like the City of Toronto, for example, have called on the federal government to implement handgun bans. The government has said no to that, but is now saying that municipalities will be able to put those forward on their own. Now, what does this mean? Does it just mean that cities like Toronto will be able to ban gun stores? Does it mean they'll be able to ban gun ranges? Or does it mean they'll be able to ban residents who live in those cities from having registered handguns? We don't know, but if they choose the latter, it would be absolutely absurd. No different than a city like, say, Calgary deciding it will not allow people to live in Calgary who have marijuana, even though it's federally legal. You can't start putting these provincial or municipal boundaries around things that are supposed to be enshrined federally in law. Or even if it is just referring to banning gun stores and banning gun ranges, we're still talking about a backdoor way that we could have gun control in Canada that isn't even subject to the same approval that federal gun control is, because municipalities are able to just shove these things through. And the federal government is able to say, well, we didn't do it, the City of Toronto did, or the city of whatever did. So right now, gun owners are facing a monumental threat to their rights, rights that are proving themselves to not cause any harm or hardship to anyone in the country. But that is an easier scapegoat if you're Justin Trudeau, to go after the people that are causing no harm than to deal with the real trouble of gun crime. This is something that True North is unequivocal on. We are standing up for law-abiding gun owners. I'm standing up for law-abiding gun owners, being one myself, one who owns an AR-15 and several handguns, which are now in jeopardy. And you may think this is about need. It's not. It's about rights. And if you allow the government to scapegoat people that are causing no trouble, you're giving it license to do it in any number of other policy areas as well. True North is standing up for you if you're a gun owner or you as a Canadian who loves freedom, but we can't do this alone. If you can chip in a few dollars to our efforts by joining my Heritage Club, it will go a long way to letting us be a voice for these people who aren't represented by the mainstream media or the government. For True North, I'm Andrew Lawton.